truly are bold. But in these troubled times, no one is truly saved for long.
Young master, I bet you're feeling dizzy after everything that's happened in Kaifeng. You only came to look for Aunt Han, yet you became entangled in the endless tides of Xiangxun schemes. But now it seems you found some leads. These masks, you recognize them, the same ones hidden beneath Aunt Han's chamber. And that guest from Velvet Shade, the one who bought your final jar of parting tear.
Who bought it from you?
A well-dressed young man, and he wore a fine scent. Looked like someone from Velvet Shade.
Every coincidence in Kaifeng was painted by a single brush. We will uncover the mastermind behind it all and find our answers, the Shimmer of the South, or in truth, the ruler of Southern Tang himself. As a vassal state of the Song Empire, Southern Tang in Xiangxun was burdened with immense tribute.
Xiangxun has already exhausted its national resources, having paid tribute 3 times this year alone.
Yet that very tribute could one day become the war fund that would devour Southern Tang itself. As ruler, the Shimmer sought to preserve his kingdom. He wove schemes as carefully as poets choose their words. His first move was to cripple the Song economy by smuggling vast quantities of iron coin into Song territory. Then the Orient Pavilion, using their pawn magistrate Xu Jian, brutally confiscated iron coin, breeding resentment among the people toward the Song court. This created a rare opportunity. If the people's trust in the court could be shattered, the empire would rot from within. To set this chess gambit, a king required a queen. Velvet Shade, led by Zhou Cheng, a courtesan sect originating from Southern Tang, became the Shimmer's eyes and ears in Kaifeng. Through this web of spies, he learned that the Xiangxun itself was already filled with grudges against the Song court. The River Master, Zheng Morong Yuan, and the Dao Lord all had their reasons, as we had uncovered their stories in previous chapters. Yet to move these pieces, he needed an inner hand. That hand was Yin Ying, the Ember of the East. Ying Ying needed the Shimmer's support to restore her wealth and one day reclaim her place in Weiyang City. In return, she became the thread that bound the 4 Xiangxun figures together, orchestrating the gold-making vessel scheme and its staged theft. The theft concealed the vast influx of iron coins smuggled into Kaifeng, while the news of the vessel itself was meant to convince the people that the Song court possessed limitless treasure and that the confiscation of coin would soon end. Then came the final stroke, the Song of Mercy, written by the Shimmer himself.
I heard the same, that if you sing the Song of Mercy, they'll give you coins from the gold-making vessel.
The Song of Mercy turned the people of Song into his weapon. Their pleas would force the court into an impossible choice: release treasury funds meant for military expansion, or face unrest that could erupt into open rebellion. Either path weakened Song, and either outcome benefited Southern Tang. It was a masterful plan, seemingly flawless. From the revelry halls of Velvet Shade, the Shimmer watched his gambit unfold. But one thing lay beyond the plan. You. The destruction of the furnace by your hand became the act that preserved the people's trust in the Song court. That furnace, the symbol of tyranny that could have ignited an uprising, was gone. In that moment, the Shimmer's ultimate goal collapsed. For his most vital chess piece, Ying Ying harbored intentions of her own and turned against the Shimmer with her final move. One might believe she joined this scheme solely to reclaim Weiyang City. But as you have learned time and again, the men and women of the Xiangxun are never so simple. Ying Ying was no longer the young lord blinded by wealth. Her true goal was to save the people of Kaifeng, not to deepen their suffering. She persuaded the court that the true treasure basin was the trust of the people. From that belief came the idea of paper money. With enough trust in the court, even paper could become currency, a solution that preserved stability and satisfied all sides. Thus, the confiscation policy was halted, and the court chose to release treasury funds to exchange iron coins for the people. In the end, Ying Ying still honored her bargain with the Shimmer. The Song treasury was drained of funds meant for war. The warship was destroyed. The granaries intended for military use were emptied. The Song advance against Southern Tang was halted. Only the destruction of the furnace, carried out by you, was not part of this plan, and it ruined the Shimmer's goal of sparking a civil uprising. Your act unintentionally became Yin Yin's checkmate against the Shimmer.
You truly are bold.
I'm sure you would be happy, saving even one extra person.
Well, how could she control what a gullible young hero would do in the name of righteousness, right? Right, young master?
My kind hero, you're still so gullible.
She had only called you young hero a few times, and you had already become one, risking your life to save a damsel in distress. Did your chivalrous heart truly move her, or were you merely the chess piece that carried out her checkmate? I am no longer certain. Kaifeng truly makes one's head spin. But in fact, the Shimmer did not allow himself to be surprised. As a ruler, he could not leave anything to chance. Through his spies, he already knew of your arrival in Kaifeng and that Yingin was secretly using you as part of her plan. Yet why did he not retaliate? Perhaps deep down he was also a kind, chivalrous soul, a man well versed in literature and poetry. A man whom the girls at Velvet Shade referred to as kindness itself, a rare thing in troubled times.
He's different. Innocence and kindness in a chaotic world are the rarest of things.
True, just like in Zhengnan.
He too felt that the suffering brought upon the people of Kaifeng was not the path to a better future for Southern Tang. Compassion for the people was the reason he did not try to stop Yingying, and the idea of using paper as money to save Kaifeng may have been his own as well. Perhaps he also saw it in you, a fledgling Jiaohu warrior who placed the well-being of others before himself. Righteousness in its purest form. Taking an interest in you, he already knew what you were searching for, the whereabouts of your beloved Aunt Han, and the one who burned your home, the mistress of the Orient Pavilion, Xiangxun. It turned out Aunt Han was no stranger to him at all. With the jar of parting tears he bought, he deliberately lured you into the revelry hall while feeding you fragments of Aunt Han's past. Were his actions driven by kindness, or was he merely shaping you into a potential chess piece?
You want the water lady story? Simply hold her in your thoughts.
Through his notes, you piece together the events in Kaifeng, answering some of your questions while raising a dozen more, especially regarding Aunt Han. The masks worn by his bodyguards were identical to the ones you saw beneath Aunt Han's chamber, where she and Uncle Unfaded Tian once operated a face-changing business. Was this a hint that Aunt Han's past was also tied to Southern Tang, or even to the Orient Pavilion itself? Those from that faction seemed wary of her willow blade, suggesting grudges long left unspoken. You also discovered that the god of avarice, Magistrate Shi Zhen, was a pawn of Qianye herself, meaning the scheme to undermine Kaifeng also bore the hand of the Orient Pavilion. Were these brutal plots the work of the Orient Pavilion all along? And though the Shimmer was the ruler of Southern Tang, was he forced to bend his will to their desires? What intrigues you most is the glimpse into Aunt Han's childhood. From stories told back in Qinghe, you know she once had a brother who died long ago.
Aunt Han, here to see your little brother again?
We are leaving soon. So, I want to spend a little more time with him.
Through an encounter with the sleeping Taoist, his divination revealed that Aunt Han's father sold her away and also foretold the grim fate of her brother. Piecing together these clues, you begin to see Aunt Han's tragic past. Her father was a Jianghu swordsman, but after losing a suspicious gamble, he sold both her and her brother to the Liang family. The Liang family's young master suffered from a wasting disease, and Aunt Han and her sibling were purchased as medicinal catalysts, suggesting that organ or body part replacement may have been involved. Later, Aunt Han's brother sacrificed himself so she could escape. A memory stirs. The night Blissful retreat burned. Caught within Qiangye's illusion, you saw two forms. One her true face, the other bearing Aunt Han's features upon the frame of a man. And considering how Aunt Han visited her brother's grave immediately after meeting Xiangye, the young master of the Liang family could very well be Xiangye herself. But 3 years ago, the Liang family was massacred. Nothing of value was stolen. Only the ancient celestial robe score from the Tang dynasty, completed by Aunt Han's sibling, disappeared. When this score was sent to the Shimmer by the spies of Velvet Shade, even Zhou Qian herself, the leader of Velvet Shade, praised the score in her elegant note. From this score, the Shimmer traced Aunt Han's identity and drew her into the gold-making vessel plan. If I may make a bold guess, perhaps the one who massacred the Liang family was Aunt Han herself, seeking revenge for her brother. What she could not predict was that the Liang family's young master, Qianye, escaped with the Tang Celestial Robe score and later joined the Orient Pavilion. Nonetheless, it is clear that the Orient Pavilion holds a deep interest in the aesthetics of the Tang dynasty. Qianye then sought out Aunt Han for revenge. By the time Qianye arrived at Blissful Retreat, Aunt Han already knew what was coming, so she struck a deal with the Shimmer to secure an escape for the people of Blissful Retreat. In return, she agreed to take part in his gold-making vessel plan.
Someone from the Jianghu has targeted us. It's too dangerous to stay. Do not worry, I have found a good place for us all.
Sadly, that plan came too late. But this is only speculation from my small mind, young master. The Shimmer left you burdened with too many questions. Why was Aunt Han's brother depicted as a girl in the Shimmer's story? Was it a metaphor, suggesting he was her lingering shadow? What was that blade you could not reach inside the revelry hall? The Shimmer left you burdened with too many questions. And the only way to uncover the truth is to travel to Jiangnan to find him, almost as if he is deliberately forcing you towards southern Tang. But the traces of Aunt Han do not end with the Shimmer's story. Do you remember the boy Zhao Changzong, the child in the red cape, dreaming of becoming a Jianghu hero like Ruby?
If someday, just if you have to leave me behind, promise you'll come back from time to time. Otherwise, I'll worry something's happened to you.
Just as Ruby's own Jianghu dream was born, the day she witnessed Aunt Han cross blades with the one she loved. To the free mind of a child, that clash was not tragedy, but legend. Zhao Chengzong was the same. He too aspired to walk the Jianghu after hearing countless tales of the Star Stealer. What he did not yet know was that his own mother was that very Star Stealer.
You silly child. You got out from down there and still haven't figured out who I am?
Wait, you're the actual Star Stealer? Then, am I your child?
Once a phantom thief who stole from corrupt officials and gave back to the poor. She had been saved by Aunt Han when they were both wanderers of the Jianghu.
Seems your Aunt Han taught you well. Quite the keen one.
And with her brother, the Jianghu figure known as the Thousand-Faced Killer, now living quietly as a blacksmith in the Ghostlight Market. Yet beneath their formidable martial prowess, they were still women. After years drenched in blood and daggers, what they longed for was not adventure, but peace. As Yida once said,
"The Jianghu. Everyone dreams of venturing into it. But once they're lost in its vast sea, they seek the nearest shore."
Wei Zhixi chose to lay down her sword and settle beside Master Zhao Pu, the Grand Chancellor of the Song Dynasty. With a father who would one day stand as a pillar of the court, and a mother who was once a legend of the Jianghu, it is no wonder Zhao Chengzong would later become a true general. From a feared swordwoman of the Jianghu, Wei Zhixi became a lady of the inner hall, seeking to save the people through governance, and to strike down threats before they ever took shape. Padhan chose a different path, closer to the people. She saved the lives she could and placed herself between danger and those who stood behind her. With each person she protected, she gathered another soul under her wing, slowly shaping the peaceful home she herself had never known. With the steady hands of a physician, she offered the art of face-changing to the Jianghu. From this, she gained great wealth, but never for power or ambition.
Aunt Han isn't here, so we better not touch anything. In a few decades, it will all be mine anyway.
You were adopted, young master. In fact, because Uncle John couldn't pay for the wine, he gave you to Aunt Han as collateral, so you would work for her to settle his debt. That wealth was used to shelter the lost and to grant ordinary people a life of quiet peace, even in troubled times. She created something rare, an immortal land within the mortal world. And thus, Blissful Retreat was born. Perhaps now its name makes sense. In Hanzi, Blissful Retreat means not envy the immortal. For even immortals could not live as freely as those who once gathered there, nor could they taste wine as gentle and fragrant as parting tears. Beneath her sharp tongue and stern manner, Aunt Han was a woman of deep feeling and even deeper regret. When she saw how Uncle Zhang saved you, an orphan with nothing to your name, she could not help but be moved. Unlike her own father, who abandoned his wife and children without looking back, perhaps that was why she showed him compassion. Strict on the surface, yet quietly caring for a mischievous child like you for so many years.
Why won't you let me go to the Jianghu? Not a word from Uncle Zhang. Doesn't that worry you?
And what of it? After all, you are certainly not leaving Heaven's Pier.
But sorrow never truly left her. Her own happiness always remained beyond reach. The quarrel with her lover, Xiangxun, atop Peace Bell Tower, ended without a single word of farewell. Two hearts parted in silence. Yet she waited for him still, year after year, only to hear the cruelest truth from Yi Dao.
You follow the ways of the Jianghu, you will end up dying in the Jianghu. Do you want to be like him, without even a proper grave?
They died without a single regret. They went without looking back. I don't want to live with regret, Aunt Han. Heaven's Pier is where I grew up.
I regret it. I regret it, okay? To hell with the Jianghu.
It is not hard to understand why she cursed the Jianghu so bitterly. The home she built in hope of a happy ending was reduced to ashes in a single night, as the past finally came knocking. Overcoming her sorrowful past, she built a home for others, a fairy tale place within the mortal world. Blissful Retreat was like a beautiful dream. I wonder if one day it can be rebuilt, if the wounds of the past can be healed, if we can continue the legacy of that Hern, rebuild the place that Ruby and Yi Dao gave their lives to protect. A place untouched by envy, an immortal refuge within the Jianghu. Maybe we're feeling a little homesick after so many things have happened. Maybe you have now become the hidden hero of Kaifeng, though mostly by accident. But the Jianghu is not always about upholding righteousness. It is also about understanding the endless tangles between sects and factions. In the next chapter, we will sneak into the base of the Nine Mortal Way and uncover why the hidden protectors and an irreplaceable balancing force of Kaifeng are always called the Scheming Sect. I swear, they are actually the most honorable sect in the Jianghu. Still, I would be careful around those sweet-looking disciples, and keep my pouch close if I were you, young master.